much effort and a high degree of frustration, I am here at the site of the Battle of Glorieta Pass. It was at this battle site that the Confederate invasion of New Mexico was brought to a halt. Okay, Union forces coming south from Fort Union met the Confederate forces coming north from Santa Fe. And here in this valley, which you can see more of in front, they fought a 3-day running battle, starting at one end and going pretty much to the other. It was an off and on again thing. Confederates winning one period, then the Union winning one period, and we will learn about the battle. But first, let's try to walk around and see what there is at Glorieta Pass. Now, I want to point out that this is not a that's the term I want to use. This is not a developed battlefield. Most of it is on private land. As I said, there were no real static lines. Confederates going one way, Union going another way. There's no monuments, there's no cannons, there's no gun emplacements. So we're just going to walk around and see what there is as I attempt to explain some of the aspects of this important battle. The Confederate Army of New Mexico, while winning the Battle of Val Verde, was in dire position. It had almost no supplies and was woefully short on horses and mules. General Sibley had only one option: go north and capture the Federal supply depots between him and Fort Union. Colonel Canby, Union commander of all Federal forces in New Mexico, was aware of the situation of the Confederate Army. He therefore sent his quartermaster north, bypassing the Confederates, with orders to destroy all supplies not at Fort Union and move all troops to that fort. General Sibley moved his army north to the small village of Socorro. Here, he set up a hospital for his sick and wounded and reorganized his army. He was able to gather a few supplies when his army captured a supply train headed for Fort Craig. For some unexplained reason, he did not send a rapid cavalry force to Albuquerque. Sibley was not only running out of supplies, but he was also running out of time. Major Donaldson was rapidly moving towards Albuquerque to implement Canby's destruction orders. In Colorado, the governor was rapidly organizing and moving volunteer militia towards Fort Union. When Sibley did send a force north, they arrived in time to see the smoke from the burning supplies on the horizon. The Confederates were, however, able to salvage some of the supplies. Through the efforts of Southern sympathizers, a significant amount of supplies were obtained from a fort forgotten by the Union quartermaster. A few days after occupying Albuquerque, the Confederates captured Santa Fe. Union forces evacuated the town and destroyed much, but not all, of the supplies. The Union armies were gradually converging on the Confederates. The day, March the 11th, that the Confederates occupied Santa Fe, the 1st Regiments of Colorado Volunteers arrived at Fort Union. Scouts reported to Sibley that Canby was moving out of Fort Craig and heading north. Sibley could not let the Union forces combine. Knowing the weaker force and the supplies he needed were at Fort Union, he proceeded north. The road between Santa Fe and Fort Union was the Santa Fe Trail. About 15 miles north of Santa Fe, the trail enters a narrow gap between the Sangre de Cristo Mountains in the north and Glorieta Mesa to the south, known as Glorieta Pass. On March 25th, a Confederate force of about 280 men under Major Charles Pyron left Santa Fe and moved to Glorieta Pass. They camped the night at the west end of the pass, near a stage station known as Johnson's Ranch, near a small canyon called Apache Canyon. To the north, the Federals were also moving. Fort Union was under the command of Colonel John Slough of the 1st Colorado Volunteers, a lawyer-turned-soldier. Slough planned to seize the pass and prevent the Confederates from getting to the fort. Colonel Slough sent a force of 400 men under Major John Shivington. Yes, the Shivington of the Sand Creek Massacre infamy, ahead of the main body. Shivington camped on the 25th at Kowalski's Ranch on the east side of the pass. In the early morning of the 26th, Union scouts captured Confederate pickets. Realizing the Confederates were close, Shivington moved to attack. The forces collided around noon. For the next several hours, the two sides fought a running battle, with Confederates slowly giving ground. Shivington ordered a cavalry charge in an attempt to capture the Confederates' cannon. The charge failed to capture the guns, but did scatter the defenders, with several being captured. As darkness was approaching, and Shivington not sure of his objectives, he withdrew his men back to Kowalski's Ranch. The 27th saw no fighting. Both sides were waiting reinforcements. Colonel Slough arrived with the bulk of his troops, bringing the Union force to a total of 1,300 men. At the other end of the pass, Lieutenant Colonel William Surrey arrived with his men, increasing the Confederates to around 1,100. He assumed command of the Confederate forces. Both forces prepared to attack on the morning of the 28th. Slough, not expecting the Confederates to advance, sent Shivington on a wide sweeping movement to the west to attack the Confederates on their flank or rear. Slough attacked Surrey late in the morning. Because he had detached Shivington with some 400 men, Slough was outnumbered. Initially, the Federal troops held their ground. However, the Confederate advantage in numbers enabled them to outflank the Union line. Slough fell back in good order and reformed his men around Pigeon's Ranch. Slough was in a strong position, anchored on the ranch, with his guns in the center, and troops occupying prominent hills to the north and south. Scurry organized his force for a three-pronged attack on the Union right, left, and center, supported with his artillery. The attack was repulsed and one cannon destroyed. This is the site of the Pigeon Ranch, which was one of the major areas of the battle. God, I can see you. All that's left is here, this building right here on the side of the road, where crazy drivers like to drive and honk. Scurry, however, kept up pressure on the Union line. Fighting was difficult in the Pinon and Scrub, and often at close quarters and even hand-to-hand at times. Eventually, Scurry's men gained control of the higher hill on Slough's right, known today as Sharpshooter's Ridge. From this position, they could fire down on the gunners and infantrymen around the buildings of Pigeon's Ranch. Slough fell back and formed a new defensive line to the east. Darkness prevented renewed Confederate attack, and Slough retreated to Kowalski's Ranch and the next day back to Fort Union. The Park Service has done a nice trail. It's fairly gradual in climb, well maintained. And I'm wearing my Confederate hat for two reasons. One, the wind will blow off my Union hat, and the other reason is because my ancestors were Confederates. As Slough fought off the Confederate attacks in the pass, he kept wondering, where was Shivington? Shivington had moved his force on the mesa to above Johnson's ranch and waited for Slough to advance down the pass. He did not find Slough or the Confederate line. What he did find, however, was the Confederate baggage train. Shivington waited 2 hours, not seeing any sign of Slough, and at the urging of Lieutenant Colonel Manuel Chavez of the 2nd New Mexico Infantry, Shivington ordered an attack on the baggage train. The train was guarded by 30 men plus some wounded, who were quickly captured or run off. The Federals burned the 80 wagons and all of their contents, spiked the cannon, and killed or ran off 500 horses and mules. Learning of Slough's defeat, Shivington retraced his steps back across the mesa and joined Slough on his withdrawal back to Fort Union. Colonel Slough and Lieutenant Colonel Scurry organized a truce for the night of the 28th to retrieve the wounded and bury the dead. The next day, while the Union troops headed back to Fort Union, Scurry, victorious but with no supplies, withdrew back to Santa Fe. Not only was the Battle of Glorieta Pass over, but so was the Confederate invasion of New Mexico. I want to give a special thanks to Warhawk for letting me use their graphics in producing this video. A link to their channel is in the description of this video. Thanks again.